Good morning, Bill. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's good to see you guys this morning. I'm not feeling the top of my game, but we're gonna try to make it happen here today. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, Laura. Anthony, Joe, Derek, Justin, Exception, Sammy, Mark. Good morning, Sarah Bear, Hagee, Drippy Hippie. Nice to see you here this morning. Nerdy the Nerdy Nerderson. Good morning, Rodman and Queenie. Good morning, Kitty Cat. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's the best time of the day when I see all you guys saying good morning to each other. There you go, Trip. You found the right place. Good job. You found the right spot. The old winter blues. It's my favorite part of the day. Right now, when I see all you guys saying hello to each other. Jesus Christ, you're the first in Australia. It's amazing how you are always the first guy in Australia to pop in. Amazing. You like own Australia, bro. You rule. You rule, dudes. Good morning, Jolie. Good morning, Vaggie. Good morning, Anthony. I see Wazzy. Good morning, everybody. Don't forget, go to your chat option and press all. What do you press? Oh, all? No, press live chat. Live chat. All messages will be visible. Top chat, just some messages. Go to live chat. And then you'll see all messages. Well, I have to remind myself to do it because when I first go on, it defaults to just top messages, and I don't see everybody unless I push that button. Okay? So make sure you get live chat. And then Derek Anderson, I agree with him. Slap the like button like it owes you money. Oh, I've never slapped anybody that owes me money. Interesting. I'm usually super nice to them, so they pay me off. Good morning, everybody. I want to show you guys. Let's get started with something right away here. Let me show you guys something. Hold on. Oh boy. Let's make sure the volume is all the way up. Okay. Okay.
Not tapping. Just enough. You ever want? You ever wonder why we gently put our paw on our humans like this? Not pushing, not tapping, just enough so they feel it. Yeah, humans think it's begging, but psychology says it's one of the most emotional things we do. It's not a habit. It's not an accident. It's more like a question, a way to say, are you really here and am I safe with you? Dogs can't talk, so we use touch. Wait, dogs can't talk? Oh, whoops. Let me clarify. Dogs that don't live on the internet can't talk like us, so they use touch. And when their paw rests on their humans, our brain releases oxytocin. Yeah, that's the same hormone humans feel when they hug someone they love. To us, that little paw, that's a hug. Yeah, and here's the part humans miss. The more stressed they are, the more often we do it. We feel everything, their breathing, their heartbeat, the tension in their hands. So when we reach out with our paw, we're not just asking, comfort me, we're saying, I've got you. It's our way of grounding them, reconnecting their heart to ours without a single word. And we don't want treats or praise. All we want is that gentle touch back from the person who makes the world feel safe. So that tiny paw and soft tap, it's not just affection. It is trust. Yeah. It is loyalty. It is love in its purest form. You ever wonder why we gently put our paw on our humans like this? Not pushing, not tapping, just enough so they feel it. Yeah, humans think it's begging, but psychology says it's one of the most emotional things we do. It's not a habit. It's not an accident. It's more like a question, a way to say, are you really here and am I safe with you? Dogs can't talk, so we use touch. Wait, dogs can't talk? Oh, whoops. Let me clarify. Dogs that don't live on the internet can't talk like us, so they use touch. And when their paw rests on their humans, our brain releases oxytocin. Yeah, that's the same hormone humans feel when they hug someone they love. To us, that little paw, that's a hug. Yeah, and here's the part humans miss. The more stressed they are, the more often we do it. We feel everything, their breathing, their heartbeat, the tension in their hands. So when we reach out with our paw, we're not just asking, comfort me, we're saying, I've got you. It's our way of grounding them, reconnecting their heart to ours without a single word. And we don't want treats or praise. All we want is that gentle touch back from the person who makes the world feel safe. So that tiny paw and soft tap, it's not just affection. It is trust. Yeah. It is loyalty. It is love in its purest form. You ever wonder why we gently put our paw on our humans like this? Not pushing, not tapping, just enough so
That's adorable.
Yeah, humans think it's begging.
My dog too, Jolie. My dog comes over and he buries his hand in his little nose in your hand.
Am I safe with you?
Leonard Watson, I saw your message there.
Dogs can't talk.
And Tara will be on my mind today. Prayers for Tara Watson. Thanks for being here, Leonard, and thanks for asking for the support, and know that we're going to provide that. Okay, let me show one more thing this morning. One more. I've seen this one before, a couple of times before. HB sent this to me yesterday. And I just, I'm going to put it out there as a reminder. Some of you guys have seen this one before too.
This is not a scam. All American seniors with Medicare can apply for the 2025 food allowance card.
witnessed I wrote the correct equation 9 times.
Wait a minute, let me fix my phone, my camera action here. Okay.
Good one. I wrote the last equation wrong on purpose because I wanted you to learn something important. Now, you all witnessed I wrote the correct equation 9 times, but nobody congratulated me on that, did you? But as soon as I made a mistake, you laughed and criticised me. Why do you think that is?
Maybe it's because you're supposed to be smarter than us?
Yeah, and it's funny. I may be in a position of authority. It doesn't make me perfect or smarter than you. I'm a teacher, but I'm also a human being who makes mistakes. The point of this exercise today is to teach a very important lesson. You will soon discover the world is quick to criticise and find fault, and much slower to praise and find the positive. You'll all experience criticism many times in your life. Those who are lucky enough to succeed or become quote unquote successful will likely experience more criticism than the rest, because you'll find the one thing people love more than pointing out another's mistakes is when they can do it to someone who's achieved more than them. However, the person who criticises others is only revealing the lack within themselves. Those who are happy within themselves need not point out the faults in others. So the 3 things I want you to remember from today's little exercise is: first, try to notice the good in others. If someone makes a mistake, try to let them know in a kind way. Praise more than you blame. The second is when, not if, but when you're criticised, remember the good in you. Remember your great qualities. Remember you're worthy and capable of great things. And finally, remember criticism is something that you can avoid easily by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. So dream big. Get out there, live your life. See how far you can push the limits. Don't fear criticism, but know when it comes, it's the result of your success, not your failures.
It's a good one, HB. Seen that one before, but it was a great reminder. Especially because it kind of goes in line with what we've been talking about here for the last few days. About how we really are great. But that's not what the world teaches us. Right? And we instantly get defensive on criticism. So we're not practicing the second agreement that's don't take things personal. The criticizer. It's more about the criticizer. It's not about you. Really good messages this morning. I keep going back to what my older sister said to me a few years before she passed away from, at a very young age, from breast cancer. And she told me, if you want successful relationships, act more like a dog. Act more like a dog. And not the kind of dog that Jesus Christ thinks about when he's being a doggy dog out there. But the kind that's non-judgmental and loves. Just loves. Just filled with love. And how do we treat our dogs? We get mad at them when they make a mistake, when they have an accident, something, of course. We flare. But we don't remind them next week. Remember last Friday when you... But we sure do that to each other, don't we? Don't we? We do that to each other. We hold on to that negative inventory. And boy, we don't have a problem replaying that negative inventory track whenever we feel like hurting them, it's not helpful. Okay? Not helpful a bit. So, let's remember that together. Do you guys remember last week when I had that random psychology situation where they were explaining people that clean up their dishes and their pans and stuff as they're cooking, some of the personality traits that they hold in general? Do you remember that? We talked about that. I read an article to you last week. I have another one sort of like that. Another kind of a neat Psychology Today article. Before I read it to you, let me ask you a question. And I need you to be very honest. Look deep inside yourself. Deep inside. And be very honest with yourself. When you're crossing the street, for example, and a car stops for you, do you just keep on walking, or do you give them a little wave, a thank you, a nod? Do you do something that recognizes that that person stopped for you? Or you pretty much beeline and get across the street and you're busy, and you probably even have a phone in your hand and you're reading it? Who does the wave and a smile? We got a lot of wavers here. You guys do the waves? Okay, there's a lot of wavers here. I personally am the waver. I am. I'm the waver and the nodder. Who doesn't? Is a better question. Who doesn't? Okay? Who doesn't? Who doesn't do a nod or a wave? I should have asked the who doesn't. Laws waves and starts running. It doesn't want to hold the people up. Psychologists say that waving thank you at cars while crossing the street is strongly associated with specific personality traits. Okay? Here's the article. You're halfway across the street, the light is blinking, and the car slows down just enough to let you pass. You lift your hand in a quick little wave, maybe add half a smile. The driver nods. 2 strangers, 3 seconds, and then the moment is gone forever. Some people do that thank you wave every single time. Others stare straight ahead, pretending the car doesn't even exist. Psychologists say that tiny gesture isn't random at all. The small street gesture gives you away. On the surface, the thank you wave looks harmless and polite, like saying good morning in an elevator. Just a reflex. Yet when researchers observe these micro behaviors in public spaces, they keep noticing the same thing. People who wave tend to share a cluster of personality traits that go far beyond basic good manners. They're more likely to be what psychologists call high in agreeableness and high in perspective taking. In plain English, they spontaneously think about what the other person might feel. That tiny lift of the hand is a way of saying, I see you, I noticed you slowed down, and that matters. A traffic psychologist in the UK once filmed hundreds of pedestrians crossing near a busy intersection. He wasn't looking at cars. He was looking at people's faces, shoulders, and hands. What he found was almost funny. The same people who waved or mouthed a thank you at drivers, I do that, I mouth thank yous at drivers, were also the ones who stepped slightly to the side to stop blocking others, who helped a parent with a stroller, who looked back when a cyclist braked sharply. In survey follow-ups, they scored higher on traits linked to sympathy, conscientiousness, and social responsibility. No one filled out a personality test mid-crosswalk. Their bodies just gave them away. Psychologists call these things pro-social microsignals. The wave, the nod, the brief eye contact. They're low effort, low cost actions that still say, we're in this together. People who do them consistently often have what's known as an internalized social norm. They don't need rules or signs telling them to be considerate. They feel it as a part of who they are. That doesn't mean non-waivers are rude monsters. Some are just anxious, distracted, or lost in their thoughts. Non-waivers, waivers and non-waivers. Is that interesting? I read that article and then I watched yesterday. And it was about, I probably saw 4 or 5 interactions, social micro interactions like that. And only one person was a non-waiver. I'd say the other 3 or 4 that I noticed, waivers. So maybe there's more waivers than we think. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. We're in this together, you guys. We're in this together. I'm glad. I don't want to be in this alone. I spent too many years being a loner, hiding behind my curtain. It feels much better to be with a group of people that I love and care about. The waivers. Give me 5 people. Do you like those articles that I find? Those little psychologists tell us about our little personality quirks. These things that we do. Do we like those? I feel like it's a neat idea to study our own human behavior. Right? Pretty cool. Good stuff. We'll keep waving. We'll keep finding those articles and figure out, what are we made of? Good stuff today. Pops doesn't feel great today. Got a little low-grade headache going on, and I'm hanging in here this morning. Just so you guys know, I'm not my perky self this morning, and I'm not going to run long today because I have a little bit of business to take care of. But I'm here, doing my best, right, HB? We'll just do our best for today. Jessie Girl's in there with me. We're not feeling great, but we're going to make it happen. Herbie wants me to drink more fluids. You guys get it. It's just a little off today. It's cold as can possibly be, too. It's below 0 outside right now. Below 0. Okay, I'm going to read you a lecture. That's right, Joey D. Semper Fi, do or die. Okay, I'm going to read you guys a lecture from Alan Watts. All right? It's in his book, The Philosophy... No, I take that back. What's the name of the book? Tao for Now. Tao for Now. Wisdom of the Waters. Okay? Now this is a transcribed lecture of his. We won't finish it today. So I'll have to pick it up tomorrow, the rest of it. But we'll get through as much of it today in the next half hour as we can. Give me 5 people that are down with the old Alan Watts. We're also going to do a little Terence McKenna coming up. Those are a couple of my favorite New Age philosophers and practitioners. Good old Alan. Here is the lecture. Alan has this to say. It's called The Philosophy of the Tao. The subject of these sessions is going to be the ancient Chinese philosophy called Taoism. In ancient China, there were 2 predominant philosophies dating apparently from more or less the same period of time, although scholars dispute this to some extent. Confucius, about whom everybody knows, lived shortly after 600 BC. The counterpart to Confucius is one called Lao Tzu. He's supposed to have been a contemporary of Confucius, but probably lived somewhat later. And he is a somewhat legendary character about whom we have less historical information. These 2 philosophies play with each other in a remarkable way. Confucianism is a social ritual. It is a conception of the order of society. That is to say, a system of social conventions, what you might call a very elaborate and profound form of etiquette. It isn't just a humanistic system, for it has some of the conception of basic principles of the universe, of harmonious relationship between heaven and earth, and things of that kind. But Confucianism is predominantly concerned with the ordering of family relationships, political relationships, and the language of ceremonies and the laws of the land. And this gives me an opportunity to say something about the nature of those social conventions, or what we might call social institutions. Because when we speak of social institutions, we're not simply speaking of things like hospitals, law courts, legislative bodies, and public health systems. Included among social institutions are such things as the clock, the calendar, weights and measures, and above all, language itself. Confucianism was deeply concerned with what was called the rectification of names. That is to say, dictionary making to ensure that people used words in the same way. And we must recognize that a great many things that all of us take for solid realities are in fact nothing but social institutions. They're conventions. For example, your idea of yourself, That is to say, your ego image, not its biological existence. Ego is a social institution. The characteristics that we associate with men on one hand and women on the other are social institutions. They have very little to do with biology or even neurology. All sorts of things which we believe to be really out there are, as a matter of fact, conventions. For example, you know very well that you cannot tie up a parcel with the equator because it is an imaginary line. And in exactly the same way, time, clock time, is an imaginary way of dividing and measuring motion. But it so happens that these social institutions become so convenient and so useful that we start to mistake them for the real world. And that can lead us into an enormous amount of confusion. The same sort of confusion from which you would suffer if, for example, you started eating the menu instead of the dinner. Now, as we civilize ourselves, we can only do so through social institutions. In other words, if we didn't have a calendar, if we didn't have an idea of the directions north, south, east, and west, although the earth being a sphere, there really are no such directions, we wouldn't be able to get it together. If we didn't have agreements about the nature of language, we couldn't communicate with each other. Excuse me. And if I didn't know about time and space, I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't say, I agree to meet you at the corner of State and Madison at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Therefore, we would never find each other. But because these institutions are so useful, we come in due course to believe them. And above all, we come to believe in ourselves as equivalent with the role we are playing in life. Confucianism was deeply concerned with roles. It addressed questions such as, what is the proper role of a father? The proper role of a mother, of an elder brother, of a younger brother, of an elder sister, of a younger sister, and so on. And you know how it is in our own life? We're all role playing. We play roles according to our occupation in life. We also play roles with respect to our characters. There are certain social kinds of roles, for example, which are acceptable for men to play. And there are certain roles which men ought not to play, according to definition. You very soon are taught by your family, by your friends, to accept yourself as a certain kind of character. You are told who you are. For example, you may remember as a child when you went out to play with other children and you came home mimicking the mannerisms of some other child, and your parent, being disturbed by this, said, "That's not you, Johnny. That's Peter." Because everybody wants to identify you and tell you who you are. And this grows, and it grows, and it grows through your lifetime. More and more people try to identify you. For example, they say, "Are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? Are you a Presbyterian, an Episcopalian? Are you a Baptist? Are you a Roman Catholic? Come on now, what are you? Come on, man, tell us what you are." In other words, people persuade you into accepting certain roles, and it's so effective because you eventually come to believe in it all. One of the funniest things they do to you is that when you're taught who you are as a child, it's practically impossible for you to resist that social persuasion. The general effect of what people say to you as a child is utterly irresistible. But then they define you as a free and independent agent. They say you're responsible, and we will praise you for what you do well, and we're going to blame you for what you do badly. But you are responsible. That is to say, you are an independent source of feelings and thoughts and actions, and you believe that because you must. There's no way of resisting it. In other words, you're defined as an independent agent because you aren't. And this leads to the most amazing confusions. I'm not saying that you don't have freedom inherently. I'm saying that the way in which you are defined as free is a way which you cannot resist. And therefore, society goes on to say to you, you are required and commanded to behave in such a way that will only be acceptable if you do it voluntarily. Example, darling, all nice children love their mothers. And of course you ought to love your mother too. But not because I say so, but because you really want to. And when you've had that put into you, you live in a state of confusion for the rest of your life. Because you're trying to be free as the result of a compulsion which you can't resist. It's completely self-contradictory. So this is one of the problems attached to role-playing. However, when you go into life and you realize you're going to wear out, and that your role is wearing a bit thin, you begin to wonder about the human state and death and getting sick and getting decrepit. And you begin to ask these questions. Who am I really? I mean, underneath the role, what is all this? What is a self? What is sensitivity? What is consciousness? What is it to exist? I really don't think I know myself at all. This is so true for me. I hit that wall when I was 60 years old. Like, I don't want to play that role anymore, the old role. The one that the world foisted on me. And I accepted it. I didn't know not to. But I played the role that was already defined for me. Well, you know, you're the guy that does this. And they would tell me what I was. And I believed it. Anybody else like that? Anybody? Anybody else like that? I know I'm not the only one. People try to box us up. Now, in our culture, and at the present time, we don't have very much to offer for people in that condition. It's true we have psychoanalysis, and we have some religions, but when you consider ordinary standard brand religions in the Western world, And they're now all more or less proclaiming that God is dead. They don't offer very much except social convention and rubbing it in by saying you should be good. We've made statistical studies of the subject matter of sermons given all over the United States on Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. And basically the vast percentage of them amount to saying to people, you ought to be good. Everybody knows this, but nobody knows how. The sermons tell us what we should and ought to do, but they're not telling us how. And if history tells us anything, it tells us that preaching doesn't work. Nobody ever listened to it, though they loved being scolded. A colorful scolding by a good preacher is a great thrill. But by and large, our standard brand religions, so far as leading one to a real deep and experiential discovery of who and what they are, and what your situation in the universe is, they don't go very far in that area. You can, of course, read deep theology on your own, and you can go quite a long way. But so far as the fare is concerned, which the ordinary person will get in the average church, it's very superficial. The Chinese, however, devised a philosophy for those who came to this point, and it's called Taoism, which, as I said, is the counterpart of Confucianism. The Chinese character for Tao is pronounced D-O-W, Tao. It's spelled T-A-O. You would think it's pronounced Tao or Teo, but we've Romanized Chinese in such a way that only those in the know can decide how it's really pronounced. We could have spelled Tao, but it's T-A-O instead. Tao means the course of nature. It means the way, the flow of things. And so Taoism is the philosophy of the way of nature. I love that definition. Taoism is the philosophy of the way of nature. Now I must start out by saying that the Tao cannot be defined. You may think it's rather strange that I'm going to talk for a whole weekend about something which can't really be said. The book that is basic to Taoism is called the Tao Te Ching. That is to say, the book of the way and its power. It starts out by saying, the Tao which can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. And then Lao Tzu goes on to write a book about it, which you may think rather illogical. But this is something very hard to understand. That the Tao means that which is absolutely basic. It therefore means the basic energy of the universe. It means what you are, what you really are, your true self. But in just the same way as you can't bite your own teeth, and in just the same way that you can't look into your own eyes without using a mirror, you cannot define your real self. The hand can't catch hold of itself. The tip of the finger can't touch the tip of the finger. And therefore, I'm sorry, but we cannot make an object out of what we really are. And that is why any conception of who you really are, anything that you may entertain, is actually wrong. So if you think of yourself as an ego, that is to say a separate and center of consciousness and action that is somehow closed up in a bag of skin, this is a false conception. You are not that. You are pretending to be that. You are playing a role. What you really are utterly escapes definition. What we really are utterly escapes definition. We try so hard to define ourselves, finding purposes, telling other people what they are, being told what we are. What you really are utterly escapes definition. And therefore it comes under the category of something metaphysical. That is to say, beyond the physical, beyond nature, in the sense of what can be classified, what can be described, what can be put in a box. Any category you choose to apply to yourself is inadequate. So do you mind if we start out with something we can't say anything about at all, but it's fundamental? Look, it's like this. What's the color of your eyes? I don't mean the irises. I mean the lens. We say it has no color. It's transparent. But you see, the perception of all color whatsoever and all shape whatsoever depends on that transparent lens. So then you might ask, what is the nature of consciousness? No one can say, because consciousness is common to all experiences and there's no way of isolating it. What is the color of space? It's the same question. Or when you listen to a phonograph or a radio, everything that you hear, all the human voices, all the noises of different instruments, they're all vibrations on a diaphragm. But nowhere does the radio announce that what you are now hearing is nothing but the vibrations on a diaphragm. That is basic to everything heard, but it's taken for granted. So in exactly the same way, the Tao is the basis of everything that goes on, but it's taken for granted. It is as necessary to everything that happens as the diaphragm is to the news on the radio. But we ignore it because it's common to everything. The Tao is the basis of every experience. Therefore, we don't notice it. You don't notice anything for which you cannot see a limit. And so we can't think about it. But the point is, which is very important to understand, is that you are it. And if you discover that, and there is a way of experiencing it, which we'll go into later, you become, what shall we call it, liberated. You are no longer taken in by the game that you are playing, which is the I am, which is particular to your ego. I am. You see through the game. And you know that it's an illusion. However, a convincing one. So this is basic. Tao is the course of nature. Now the first chapter of Lao Tzu's book starts out with the words, "The Tao which can be spoken is not the eternal Tao." I'm just taking that as a key phrase to give you the first point. Now what is the second point? That's the beginning of the second chapter of this book, which is attributed to Lao Tzu and is supposed to have existed from at least 400 BC. When he starts out the second chapter, he says, "When all the world knows beauty to be beautiful, there is already ugliness. When all the world knows goodness to be good, there is already evil. Thus, to be and not to be arise mutually." A mutual arising is an absolutely essential idea for the whole foundation of Chinese thought. The Chinese characters for these two components, one meaning to arise, which was originally the figure of a growing plant, and the other means mutuality. And this is completely crucial to everything I'm talking about. Do you see that you can't have a front without a back? That you can't have a top without a bottom? That you can't have the idea of long without the idea of short? You don't have long things before you have short things, or short things before you have long things. In the same way, you don't have a world in which there are bees without flowers, or flowers without bees. Because you see, bees and flowers are really the same organism. They look different, just as your head looks different from your feet. But you don't have human beings who have heads and no feet, or feet and no heads. They go together. Of course, they are rather obviously joined by skin and bone, and bees and flowers float apart. Bees buzz and flowers send out smell and color. But they are in essence the same organism because they're inseparable. They require each other. So this is the whole idea of rising together. So that, in other words, to be and not to be, the whole notion of is and isn't, depends on each other. Now this is contrary to our common sense. We think that being is really there and non-being isn't. But we are at the same moment afraid that being may end up as non-being because there's so much more non-being than there is being. In other words, there seems to be so much more space than there is solid. And since wherever solid is, the world requires energy, and since energy eventually runs out, we are afraid that it may all end up as nothing. That we may end up as nothing, along with everything else. And we're scared stiff of that, because we don't understand that space, or emptiness, and solid are two aspects of one reality. Just as the front and back, and just as the bees and flowers go together. They have to go together. You cannot possibly conceive a solid space without a surrounding space. And you cannot conceive space without solids occupying it. Because space is a matter of fact. nothing but the relationship between solids. It's like an interval in music. It's like an interval in music. You can't hear melody unless you hear intervals. But the intervals are not there. There are only the tones. The intervals are, in a way, an illusion. However, the hearing of intervals, that is to say, the steps between the tones, is absolutely necessary for being able to hear melody. If you don't hear the intervals, you only have a succession of noise. So you see how important the interval is. And any architect, any artist, knows that space is real. We talk about the functions of space. Astronomers and physicists talk about properties of space, curved space, and so on and so forth. But in the common, ordinary sense that most people have, they think space just isn't there. Solids are there. Reality is therefore identified with the solid, with the energy, and unreality with the emptiness. And therefore, there's a basic dread which existentialists talk about as angst. Fundamental anxiety that arises from the fact that the moment you know you exist, you know you could not exist. And therefore, all through one's life, there is a sword of Damocles hanging over you that any minute might not be. And that's a real, pardon me, and that's a real scare. Until, however, you come to understand that to be or not to be is not a question. Because to be cannot be without not being. Just as not being cannot be without being. This makes me think so hard. And so, for Chinese thought, these two aspects of the world are called yin and yang. The yang means the south side of a mountain, which is in the sun. And the yin means the north side of a mountain, which is in the shade. So they come to mean positive and negative. They come to mean white and black. They come to mean female and male. And they are represented in the familiar diagram of an S curve inside a circle, like two interlocked commas, one white and one black, where each has, as it were, the eye of the comma, or the opposite color. This yin-yang symbolism is sometimes also represented in the Book of Changes by broken and unbroken lines. And actually, from the symbolism of the Book of Changes, which is the I Ching, Leibniz read it in Latin, and from it, he figured out binary arithmetic. Binary arithmetic was figured out from the I Ching. It's the most basic concept for computer techniques. 0 and 1. All numbers can be represented by 0 and 1. 0 is the yin, and 1 is the yang. But you see, the whole secret is that the yin and yang are inseparable. When we were little children, and everybody taught us ABC, and 1, 2, 3, They didn't teach us the lesson of black and white or off and on. This belongs in a way to our culture, to the hushed up side of things. Now, the lesson of black and white is to realize, for example, that all your senses are really one sense, a kind of touching. You touch light with your eyes. You touch air vibrations with your eardrums to get sound. Smell is touching gases and dust in the air. Taste is touching the texture of food and things. The touch with the epidermis is perhaps the crudest form of touch, and sight is the most subtle. And do you realize that all sensation, whatever it is a vibration? It goes on and off, over and over. But if it goes fast enough, you don't notice the off. You only notice the on. An arc light, for example, is going on and off with terrific speed. So much so that you shouldn't use an arc light in a sawmill, because this one on and off can synchronize with the speed of the saw, and a circular saw may appear to be still when it's actually moving. But all things are like that, on and off. Now you can't have a vibration unless it's a wave pattern, where the crest of the wave is on and the trough of the wave is off. And you can't have a wave which is half a wave. In other words, no wave exists with the crest alone. There must be a trough. A half wave cannot be manifested. Being, you see, is at work, because being is constantly being. Non-being, being, non-being, being, non-being. Now you see it, now you don't. So although on and off are different, they are inseparable, like the two poles of a magnet. Now, if you don't realize that on and off actually constitute unity, then you get scared that off may win. And if you get scared that off may win, then you stop playing the game of black and white, and you start on another game called on must win. And then the game degenerates into a fight. It becomes serious. The awful awfuls might get the better in the end. They won't. They may appear to, but they won't. But if you don't see that, you get mixed up. And you don't understand the relationship of yin and yang. So it is the interconnection, or rather the inseparability of yin and yang, which is meant by the Tao. This is why the Tao cannot be explained. And the reason, again, if I may put it another way, is all thinking is classification. It's asking, is you is, or is you ain't? Is it this, or is it that? Because after all, if you want to say something is inside, it requires an outside. Can't have an inside without an outside. Can't have an outside without an inside. Which is it? And you say choose. So guess what? Westerners are always choosing. Once to every man and nation comes the moment to decide, when the strife twixt truth and falsehood, for the good or evil side. Then it is the brave man who chooses. while a coward stands aside. In other words, you must choose. Which are you? And we've magnified this into a nightmare, wherein the ultimate consequence and the destiny of the cosmos becomes, are you saved or are you damned forever? And that's where our religions take us. Oh, what a thrill, what a great decision. Are you saved or are you damned? What people don't understand is that you don't know you belong to the saved group unless there's also a damned group. In every American town, there are nice people who live on one side of the tracks, and the not so nice people who live on the other. In my town of Sausalito, the people who live up on the hill are the nice people. And then there are the people who live on the waterfront. They're the beatniks and the bohemians, and goodness knows what else. Well, now, when the nice people on the top of the hill meet for their cocktail parties, the main thing they discuss is how the whole town's deteriorating and how the awful people are proliferating and fouling up the bay and so on. This boosts their collective ego because they know they're the nice people. Meanwhile, the bohemians and the beatniks get together at the parties and they play like they're the real in-group, because all those squares and snobbish bourgeoisie who live up on the hill are engaged in a business rat race, doing work which is of no interest in order to buy toy rocket ships and have wall-to-wall carpets. And so the bohemians and beatniks boost their collective ego too by arguing against the people at the top of the hill. But what neither side realizes is that they need each other. Because if you want to belong to an in-group, you don't know who you are unless you can define an out-group. We'll pick it up from there tomorrow. I hope you guys are getting this. He's really setting the basis, a binary basis. We've chosen the labels that we adhere to. We were labeled, and then we chose to act in those labels. I'm guilty of this one for a while now. We gotta work on this. For a while now, I've been pointing at the one group and saying they're the baddies, and I'm in the goodies group. And I'm wrong. We're all in it together. I'm wrong. I need to get to a point in my daily philosophy and exercising life where I'm not in a group. We're all in it together. I don't want to identify as a certain group. I want us to all identify. And we're in this thing together. We'll fix this up a little bit tomorrow. You guys okay with this reading so far? I know it's a little long, maybe a little draggy, but he's laying it out there for us. Give me 5 people that want me to finish the article tomorrow. We'll finish it up tomorrow. This article. It's a lecture. Good. Good. Kimberly, I love that. You know what group we're in? We're in the Living Beings group. I love that. I love that. So we'll finish working on this one tomorrow. There's a lot that we just don't understand because we've just lived a life that's bombarded us and told us how to live, what group is cool, what group isn't cool, and then we choose. And we need to get to a world that there are no groups. That we're all independent, but dependent on one another. We need both, right? I can't be independent if there isn't dependency too. I'm going to work on this one. I got a lot of work to do. 4 things I would mind ourselves of today. Be impeccable with your word and your actions. Be impeccable. Understand the power that you have and use it for goodness and kindness. Number 2, don't take anything personal. Anything at all. Don't be boosted up with your own ego, because that's simply a social convention. Egos don't really even exist. But we've made them up. And then we label it. We're going to avoid that from now on. Expectations and assumptions, don't have them. They're literally resentments waiting to happen. If you're going to give freely. Give from the soul. And don't expect anything back, because you will already, before you even, as you send your goodness, your gift, your kindness, as you're sending it, it's already being replaced by more. Why would I expect more than that? I already am getting more back than what I sent. That's as good as I can ask for. I don't need more. Number 4, do your best. Do your best. Headaches, coughing, whatever it is, you can still hang in there and you can still get your job done. What's your job? To be more like nature. Let me scroll you guys out of here. I'm scrolling you. HB and Terry Newman, good morning, Terry. Captain Kev is picking it up what we're laying down. Thank you, Cap. Terry and HB. And Jesus Christ and Zozo LSD. And Niffer and Kitty Catzilla. And Jesus Christ and HB. And Sanam and Mike Butterball. Derek Anderson, love that guy. Kimberly, thank you. It's been a beautiful morning. Jesus Christ and HB. Herbie Von Wordy, Broken Furby Kabop. I don't know why I love saying that, Herbs. Billy D, Niffy. I love Niffy. HB. Trippy Hippie, thank you for being here this morning, good friend. Say good morning to Lady K for me, please. Jesus Christ, and Ray Cook. We're going to finish the goodness. Captain Kev, Mike Barball, Kimberly. Herb, that fire cider is good stuff. Sammy P. Canito. Cyber Jolie, good morning. Claney, all over it. Trenty, the Trenty Trenterson, Jesus Christ. Nippy wants everybody to have a fantastic day because she loves us all. Will do. Good morning, Pidgey Page, the peaceful one. Derek Anderson, tonight, Bible study, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Mystic Journeys Church. Go check out Derek. He's melding plant medicine in with Christian philosophy. And he's doing a beautiful job. Love what he's doing over there. It's on YouTube. Mystic Journeys Church, 9 p.m. tonight. Eastern Standard Time. Herbie, HB, Trippy, Kim, Vaggie, Jesus Christ, Laura, have a divine day, Joey D, and Pops is out of here. I'm going to go take some aspirin and then call an Uber and head on over to the grow house. And I bet you my mushrooms will make me feel better. I'm pretty much sure, based off of my past experience, all of this stuff in my head will go away and I'm just going to be dialed in on the goodness of plant medicine. Pops, peace, love. Pops, peace, love. See you tomorrow, guys. Love you very, very much, and I mean that.